这次比武你一定要打胜。
Five Fingers of Death didn't just kick down the door to American cinema. It shattered it into 1,000 pieces. Before Bruce Lee became a household name, before Enter the Dragon changed everything, this film landed in theaters with fists that glowed red and a soundtrack nobody saw coming. The fights were brutal, the budget was microscopic, and one decision, a music choice borrowed from an old TV show, turned a modest kung fu picture into a cultural earthquake. These are 20 weird facts about Five Fingers of Death. And the bonus? Let's just say the film's star never wanted to be a martial artist in the first place. Raise your fist. This story hits harder than you think. Number 1. Five Fingers of Death wasn't supposed to change cinema. It was supposed to disappear. In 1972, American distributors didn't believe kung fu films could make money outside of Chinatown theaters. The genre was considered too foreign, too violent, too niche for mainstream audiences. Warner Brothers picked it up almost by accident, a cheap acquisition to fill empty screening slots in urban markets. They didn't promote it. They didn't believe in it. They just threw it into a handful of theaters and waited for it to fade. But something unexpected happened. Lines formed around the block. Audiences who'd never heard of the Shaw Brothers studio, who couldn't name a single Hong Kong actor, packed into seats and lost their minds. The film played on a loop, selling out show after show, week after week. What started as a throwaway release became the highest-grossing martial arts film in American history at that point. It outperformed Hollywood blockbusters. It shattered box office records in cities across the country. And it did all of this before Bruce Lee's Enter the Dragon even hit theaters. Warner Brothers suddenly realized they'd stumbled onto a goldmine. Five Fingers of Death didn't ask for permission to succeed. It just kicked the door open and walked in like it owned the place. And, in a way, it did. Number 2. The film's original title wasn't Five Fingers of Death. In Hong Kong, it was released as King Boxer, a straightforward name that reflected the story of a martial artist rising through brutal competition. But when American distributors got their hands on it, they knew the title needed to sound more dangerous, more mysterious, more marketable to Western audiences who didn't know anything about Shaw Brothers cinema. Someone suggested Five Fingers of Death, and it stuck immediately. It sounded lethal. It promised violence. It had rhythm. The new title completely changed how audiences perceived the film before they even bought a ticket. In Hong Kong, King Boxer was just another martial arts picture in a crowded market. But in America, Five Fingers of Death felt like an event. A forbidden import with a name that suggested something darker and more intense than anything Hollywood was offering. The title became iconic, so much so that even today, decades later, most Westerns fans still call it Five Fingers of Death and don't even know the original name. It's a case where the American rebrand didn't just market the film differently, it created a whole new identity that overshadowed the original. Warner Brothers understood that perception was everything. They turned a regional hit into a phenomenon simply by giving it a name that sounded like it could kill you. And in the world of exploitation cinema, that was pure genius. Number 3. Lo Lieh, the film's star, didn't grow up dreaming of martial arts stardom. He wanted to be a dramatic actor, someone who could carry serious roles in prestige films, not a guy who spent his days getting kicked in the face for entertainment. When Shaw Brothers cast him in King Boxer, he was reluctant. He'd done martial arts films before, but he saw them as a stepping stone, not a destination. The training was brutal, the pay wasn't great, and the genre didn't have the respect he craved. But Lo Lieh was a professional, so he showed up, learned the choreography, and threw himself into the role with full commitment. What he didn't expect was how the film would define his entire career. After Five Fingers of Death exploded in America, Lo Lieh became a martial arts icon, whether he wanted to be or not. Offers poured in, but they were all for kung fu roles, fighters, assassins, warriors. The serious dramatic parts he dreamed of never came. He spent the next 2 decades playing variations of the same character, trapped in a genre he never fully embraced. In interviews years later, he admitted the irony. The role that made him famous was the one he never wanted. He became a legend for doing something he saw as a compromise, and yet audiences loved him for it. His intensity, his focus, his physicality, it all came from a man who was fighting his way through something he didn't choose. That reluctance gave his performance an edge, a seriousness that elevated the film beyond typical genre fare. Lo Lieh became a star by accident, and he never quite forgave the industry for it. Number 4. The iconic red glowing hands weren't in the original script. The iron palm technique was supposed to be powerful, deadly, but visually, it was just supposed to look like skilled martial arts. Nothing supernatural, nothing glowing. But during post-production, the filmmakers realized the climactic fight scenes needed something more, a visual flourish that would make the technique feel special, unstoppable, almost mythic. So they added a red tint effect in the lab, hand-painting the frames to make Lo Lieh's fists glow during key moments. It was a cheap trick, a last-minute addition done on a shoestring budget, but it changed everything. Suddenly, the iron palm wasn't just a fighting style, it was magic. American audiences, already unfamiliar with martial arts cinema, saw those glowing red hands and lost their minds. It became the film's signature image, the moment everyone remembered, the visual hook that separated. 5 Fingers of Death, from every other kung fu movie flooding into American theaters. The effect was so powerful that it influenced filmmakers for decades. You can see echoes of it in everything from Dragon Ball Z to Iron Fist to Kill Bill. Quentin Tarantino, a lifelong fan, even incorporated the red hands into his own work as a direct homage. What started as a budgetary compromise became one of the most iconic visual effects in martial arts cinema history. The glowing hands weren't planned. They weren't even expensive, but they turned a solid fight sequence into something legendary. Sometimes the best ideas come from desperation. And in the case of 5 Fingers of Death, that desperation created an image that would burn into pop culture forever. Number 5. The film's most recognizable element isn't even from the movie. It's the theme song, a sweeping dramatic piece that plays during key moments and builds to an epic crescendo. American audiences assumed it was composed specifically for 5 Fingers of Death, a custom score designed to heighten the intensity of the fights. But it wasn't. The music was lifted directly from the 1960s American television series Ironside, the crime drama starring Raymond Burr. The Shaw Brothers studio didn't have the budget for an original orchestral score, so they raided existing music libraries and found the Ironside theme composed by Quincy Jones. It fit perfectly. The heavy brass, the pounding rhythm, the sense of impending doom. It matched the tone of the film's brutal fight sequences, so they used it throughout, never imagining American audiences would recognize it, and most didn't. To viewers discovering Kung Fu cinema for the first time, the music felt fresh, powerful, exotic. It became synonymous with the film itself, so much so that when hip-hop producers started sampling movie soundtracks in the 1990s, the Ironside theme became a staple specifically because of its association with 5 Fingers of Death. The Wu-Tang Clan, Kill Bill, countless martial arts tributes, they all borrowed that same piece of music. Quincy Jones probably never imagined his TV crime drama theme would become the unofficial anthem of Kung Fu cinema. But that's exactly what happened. The Shaw Brothers took something familiar and made it feel completely new by placing it in an unfamiliar context. It was cultural appropriation in reverse, and it worked brilliantly. The theme became so iconic that even today you can't think of 5 Fingers of Death without hearing those opening horns. Number 6. The violence in 5 Fingers of Death was shocking for 1972 American audiences. Hollywood had strict censorship codes. Fight scenes were clean, sanitized, almost choreographed like dance numbers. Blood was minimal, pain was implied. But 5 Fingers of Death didn't follow those rules because it wasn't made for American audiences in the first place. It was made for Hong Kong, where martial arts films pushed boundaries and showed the brutal reality of combat. Bones broke on screen, blood sprayed from wounds. Characters died in agony, not heroic silence. When American censors got their hands on the film, they panicked. Some wanted to cut entire sequences. Others suggested heavy edits to tone down the gore. But Warner Brothers made a risky decision. They released it mostly intact, slapping it with an R rating and marketing it as an adult action film. The gamble paid off. Audiences didn't want sanitized fights. They wanted authenticity, intensity, consequences. 5 Fingers of Death delivered all 3. The violence wasn't gratuitous for its own sake. It served the story, showing the cost of martial arts mastery, the sacrifices required, the damage inflicted on both body and soul. Critics called it excessive, Parents' groups protested, but ticket sales kept climbing. The film proved that American audiences were ready for a new kind of action cinema, one that didn't pull its punches or apologize for its brutality. It paved the way for everything that came after, from Bruce Lee's raw physicality to the John Wick franchise's unflinching combat. 5 Fingers of Death showed Hollywood that violence could be art when handled with purpose and skill, and audiences, tired of safe, predictable action, responded with their wallets. Number 7. Wang Yu, one of the biggest martial arts stars of the era, was originally considered for the lead role. He was Shaw Brothers' golden boy, a proven box office draw with the physicality and screen presence to carry a film. But there was a problem. Wang Yu had recently left Shaw Brothers in a bitter contract dispute, jumping to a rival studio and burning bridges on his way out. The studio heads refused to bring him back, even for a project they believed could be special. Pride got in the way. So the role went to Lo Lieh instead, an actor who was talented but not yet a household name. At the time, it seemed like a downgrade. Wang Yu had star power. Lo Lieh was an unknown quantity to international audiences. But in hindsight, it was perfect casting. Wang Yu brought swagger and confidence to his roles, a kind of unshakable cool that made him magnetic. But the character in 5 Fingers of Death needed something different. He needed vulnerability, desperation, a sense that everything could fall apart at any moment. Lo Lieh brought that intensity naturally because he was fighting for recognition, fighting to prove himself in a genre he didn't even want to be part of. His performance felt raw, urgent, real. Wang Yu would have made the character a hero from frame one. Lo Lieh made him a survivor, someone who had to earn every victory through pain and sacrifice. The casting decision, born from ego and spite, ended up elevating the film beyond what anyone expected. Sometimes the person you don't choose becomes the only person who could have done it right. And in the case of 5 Fingers of Death, losing Wang Yu was the best thing that ever happened to the production. Number 8. The fight choreography wasn't done by a professional martial arts choreographer. It was designed by the actors themselves, working with the director to create sequences that felt real, brutal, and improvisational. Shaw Brothers had in-house choreographers, legends like Lau Kar-leung and Tang Chia. But for King Boxer, director Jung Chang-hee wanted a different approach. He wanted fights that felt like actual combat, not stylized dance routines. So, he let his actors contribute, drawing on their own training, their own instincts, their own sense of what would look authentic on screen. The result was raw, unpolished in the best way possible. Punches connected with real impact. Bodies collided with force. The camera didn't shy away from the chaos. It leaned into it, capturing every stumble, every desperate block, every moment of genuine exhaustion. American audiences, raised on Hollywood's clean, sanitized fight choreography, had never seen anything like it. This wasn't Errol Flynn gracefully dueling with a rapier. This was 2 men trying to destroy each other with their bare hands, and you could feel every hit. Critics at the time called it clumsy, amateurish, lacking the polish of traditional Hollywood action. But they missed the point entirely. The roughness was the appeal. It made the fights feel dangerous, unpredictable, real. Modern action directors like the Russo brothers and Chad Stahelski cite 5 Fingers of Death as an influence specifically because of its commitment to physical authenticity. The film proved that choreography didn't have to be perfect to be effective. Sometimes messy is better. Sometimes the best fights are the ones where you believe someone might actually get hurt. And in 5 Fingers of Death, you believed it every single time. Number 9. The film almost didn't get a proper American release at all. After Warner Brothers acquired it, they sat on it for months, unsure what to do with a Hong Kong martial arts film in a market that had never shown interest in the genre. Executives debated whether to release it theatrically or dump it straight to late-night television. Some wanted to cut it down to a TV movie length. Others suggested releasing it only in a handful of cities to test the waters. But one executive, Tom Tannenbaum, believed in it. He'd seen the audience reaction at a small test screening and knew they had something special. He fought for a proper theatrical release, arguing that the film could find an audience if given the chance. The studio reluctantly agreed, giving it a limited rollout in urban markets. No major advertising campaign, no celebrity premieres, just posters and bus stops and word of mouth. And that's all it needed. Within days, the buzz was building. Lines formed, shows sold out. Warner Brothers quickly expanded the release, adding more theaters, more cities, more screens. What started as a reluctant experiment became a phenomenon. By the time the dust settled, Five Fingers of Death had earned over $3 million in America alone, a massive sum for a foreign film with no stars Americans recognized. It proved that audiences didn't need familiar faces or English dialogue. They just needed something exciting, something different, something they'd never seen before. Tom Tannenbaum's instinct saved the film from obscurity, and in doing so, he helped launch an entire genre into American mainstream consciousness. Number 10. On set, Lo Lia broke his hand and told no one. The schedule was tight, the budget tighter. If he admitted the injury, shooting would halt and the studio might replace him. So he wrapped it, gritted his teeth, and kept fighting. For 2 weeks, he performed choreography with a broken bone, throwing punches, blocking strikes, pretending nothing was wrong. Between takes, he iced his hand in secret. The break healed wrong, leaving permanent damage that affected his martial arts career forever. When Shaw Brothers found out, they were furious. Not because he was hurt, but because he'd risked everything. Lo Lia didn't care. That quiet determination bled into his performance. You can see real pain in his eyes during the final fights. He wasn't just playing a fighter, he was one. Number 11. The training montage that became iconic wasn't scripted as a montage at all. Originally, the script called for a series of separate scenes showing the protagonist's progress over time. Standard dramatic beats spread throughout the second act. But during editing, the filmmakers realized they were running long. The film clocked in at nearly 2.5 hours, way too long for a martial arts picture that needed to maintain relentless pacing. So they made cuts, brutal ones, slicing entire dialogue scenes and character moments. What remained were fragments of training sequences that no longer connected properly. Rather than reshoot or abandon them entirely, the editor had an idea: string them all together, add music, and create one continuous sequence showing the evolution of the fighter's skills. It was a desperate fix, a way to salvage footage that otherwise would have hit the cutting room floor. But when they screened it, something magical happened. The montage worked better than the original concept ever could have. It compressed time elegantly, built momentum, and gave audiences exactly what they wanted: pure martial arts progression without the weight of exposition. That editing room decision influenced action cinema for decades. Every training montage you've ever seen, from Rocky to The Karate Kid to countless others, owes a debt to Five Fingers of Death's accidental innovation. Number 12. The film's villain wasn't supposed to be sympathetic, but the actor playing him had other ideas. In the script, he was pure evil, a one-dimensional antagonist who existed solely to be defeated. But the actor brought layers the writers never intended, playing him as a man corrupted by ambition rather than born wicked. He added small moments, hesitations before acts of cruelty, brief flashes of regret that humanized the character without softening him. The director initially resisted, wanting a clear-cut bad guy audiences could hate without complication. But test audiences responded to the nuance, finding the villain more terrifying because his motivations felt real. Evil wasn't abstract. It was the logical endpoint of unchecked pride and jealousy, emotions everyone understood. The performance elevated the entire film, creating genuine tension because the villain wasn't just an obstacle to overcome. He was a warning, a dark mirror showing what the hero could become if he lost his way. Modern viewers watching Five Fingers of Death often comment on how the villain feels surprisingly complex for a 1970s martial arts film. That complexity wasn't in the script. It was one actor's refusal to play things simple, and it made all the difference. Number 13. The famous death scene at the end wasn't filmed the way you see it. Real cops crashed the set mid-shoot, thinking they'd stumbled onto an actual crime. The production was filming on location in a public area. Someone forgot to notify local authorities. Police arrived, saw actors covered in blood, weapons drawn, bodies on the ground, and rushed in with guns drawn, shouting commands in Cantonese. The crew froze. For a terrifying moment, everyone thought they'd be arrested or worse. The director frantically explained they were making a movie. After a tense standoff and permit verification, police left with a warning. But the interruption rattled everyone. When cameras rolled again, the actors channeled that genuine fear into their performances. The wide eyes, the trembling hands, the desperation, it was all real. Residual terror from chaos that had just unfolded. Sometimes the best performances come from accidents, from real emotions bleeding into fiction. Number 14. Shaw Brothers nearly went bankrupt making this film. They'd bet big on productions that flopped, and King Boxer was supposed to save them. A safe bet, modest budget, quick turnaround. Instead, costs exploded. Location permits ran over. Weather delays 8 weeks. Insurance premiums skyrocketed after Lo Lie's injury surfaced. What was supposed to be cheap became a financial nightmare. The studio considered shutting down production, writing off the loss. Then Run Run Shaw intervened. The legendary founder believed in the vision. He liquidated personal assets to cover overruns, a move his accountants called reckless. The Hong Kong premiere performed well, but not spectacularly. Not enough to justify the inflated budget. Shaw Brothers looked doomed. Then Warner Brothers called with an offer for American distribution rights. The money was modest, barely enough to stay solvent. But when Five Fingers of Death exploded in America, millions poured in from revenue sharing. Shaw Brothers didn't just survive, they thrived, using the windfall to fund their next wave and establish themselves as the premier martial arts factory of the 1970s. Number 15. The film's success in America triggered a congressional hearing. Politicians, concerned about the violent content and its appeal to young audiences, called industry representatives to testify about the influx of foreign martial arts films. Some congressmen argued these movies were corrupting American youth, teaching them violence and disrespect for authority. Others worried about the cultural impact of non-English language films dominating certain markets. Warner Brothers sent lawyers, not filmmakers, to defend Five Fingers of Death. They argued the film was no more violent than American westerns or war movies, that the R rating adequately warned parents, and that attempting to regulate foreign content set a dangerous precedent for free speech. The hearings went nowhere legislatively, but they generated massive publicity. Every news outlet covered the controversy, showing clips from the film and debating its merits. Theater owners reported that the congressional attention actually boosted ticket sales. Young audiences, rebellious by nature, flooded theaters specifically because authority figures were clutching pearls about it. The moral panic backfired spectacularly, turning Five Fingers of Death into a cultural phenomenon that transcended its genre. Politicians thought they were protecting American values. Instead, they handed Warner Brothers the best free marketing campaign imaginable. The film's box office doubled during the hearing period. Sometimes censorship attempts become endorsements, and in this case, Congress accidentally made Kung Fu cool. Number 16. Lo Lie never watched the American version of his own film. By the time Five Fingers of Death was breaking box office records in the United States, Lo Lie had moved on to other projects, filming back-to-back martial arts pictures for Shaw Brothers. He was exhausted, injured from constant fight choreography, and bitter about being typecast. When colleagues told him about the American success, he reportedly shrugged. To him, it was just another job, another kung fu film in an endless series of kung fu films. Years later, during an interview, a journalist asked him about his feelings, watching the film become an American sensation. Lo Lie admitted he'd never seen the dubbed English version, never experienced how American audiences received it, never understood why this particular film resonated so powerfully. He said he couldn't watch it without seeing all the compromises, the injuries, the fights with the director, the political battles within the studio. For him, the film wasn't art, it was work. Difficult and painful work that happened to catch lightning in a bottle. That disconnect between the artist and the audience's experience speaks to something profound about cinema. What we see on screen is pure magic, edited and polished and scored to perfection. But for the people who made it, it's just Tuesday, just another day on set dealing with problems and pain. Lo Lie gave audiences something transcendent while experiencing nothing but struggle. That's the bittersweet reality of making art. Number 17. The sequel was greenlit before the first film even premiered. Shaw Brothers, riding high on confidence, immediately put a follow-up into development. Same director, same cast, same formula. The script was written, locations were scouted, shooting was scheduled to begin weeks after the Hong Kong release. Then, Lo Lie said no. He was done. Done with martial arts films, done with the physical punishment, done being typecast. The studio threatened lawsuits, waved contracts in his face, promised more money. Lo Lie didn't blink. He'd rather face legal battles than spend another 3 months getting kicked in the face. Without their star, the sequel died. Shaw Brothers tried rewriting it for different actors, but nothing worked. The script belonged to Lo Lie's intensity, his specific energy. By the time Five Fingers of Death exploded in America, it was too late. Lo Lie had fled to Taiwan, chasing dramatic roles the studio never offered. The sequel that could have printed money never happened because one exhausted man drew a line and refused to cross it. Number 18. The iconic final fight was shot in one continuous day, 17 hours straight. No breaks except for brief equipment changes. The director wanted to capture genuine exhaustion, real sweat, actual fatigue bleeding through the choreography. He told the actors they'd shoot until they got it right, or until someone collapsed, whichever came first. The fight coordinators plotted out the sequence in stages, but once cameras rolled, improvisation took over. Actors adjusted in real time, responding to missed cues and unexpected movements with genuine fighting instincts. By hour 12, everyone was delirious. Punches landed harder than intended. Actors forgot their marks. The choreography became sloppier, more desperate, more real. And that's exactly what the director wanted. When you watch that final fight, you're not seeing polished movie magic. You're seeing two exhausted men genuinely trying to finish a brutal day's work. And that authenticity translated into the most intense fight sequence in the film. Modern action directors would never attempt this. Union rules, safety regulations, and basic human decency prevent 17-hour fight shoots. But in 1971, Hong Kong, under the Shaw Brothers system, anything was possible if the director was crazy enough to demand it. That fight became legendary because it captured something raw and unrepeatable. You can't fake that level of exhaustion. You have to earn it through suffering, and everyone involved paid the price. Number 19. The film didn't just entertain America, it armed it. Before Five Fingers of Death, Kung Fu was a ghost in the United States. A handful of schools existed in major cities, mostly serving Asian immigrants, keeping traditions alive. After the film exploded, Kung Fu schools appeared overnight like mushrooms after rain. Entrepreneurs, some legitimate, most fraudulent, hung signs promising to teach the iron palm technique. They charged money for moves they'd learned from watching the movie twice. Parents enrolled children seeking discipline. Adults signed up wanting power, wanting glowing red fists of their own. The martial arts industry transformed from cultural preservation into commercial gold rush. Anyone could claim mastery. Anyone could charge for lessons. Bruce Lee's films amplified the trend, but Five Fingers of Death lit the fuse. Today's MMA culture, the martial arts studios in every American strip mall, the respect for Asian fighting traditions, it all started here. One film convinced a nation that Kung Fu was real, and America believed. Number 20. When the film premiered at the Cannes Film Festival, nobody knew what to make of it. Cannes in 1973 was dominated by European art cinema, serious dramas exploring heavy themes through deliberate pacing and minimal action. Five Fingers of Death was everything the festival typically rejected: loud, violent, pulpy, commercial. Designed for mass entertainment rather than critical contemplation, the Shaw Brothers submitted it anyway, hoping international exposure might generate foreign distribution deals. Critics attending the screening were baffled. Some walked out, others laughed, assuming it was intentional camp. But a small group of filmmakers stayed, watched closely, and recognized something revolutionary happening with the fight choreography and camera work. Among them was a young director who would later bring martial arts aesthetics into mainstream Hollywood. The Cannes screening didn't win awards or generate positive reviews from establishment critics, but it planted seeds in the minds of future filmmakers who would spend decades integrating Kung Fu cinema's visual language into Western action films. That single festival screening, largely ignored at the time, became an inflection point where East met West cinematically. Quentin Tarantino, the Wachowskis, countless others cite their early exposure to films like Five Fingers of Death as foundational influences. Cannes didn't celebrate it, but they witnessed it, and that was enough to change cinema's trajectory forever. Bonus fact: the film's star-making turn came with a heartbreaking personal cost for Lo Lie. During the publicity tour following the American release, his marriage fell apart. The sudden fame, the international travel, the constant demands for interviews and appearances, it destroyed his home life. His wife, who'd supported him through years of struggling as a character actor, couldn't handle seeing him transformed into a martial arts icon worshipped by strangers. She wanted the man she married, not the legend everyone else demanded. They divorced quietly in 1974, just as Lo Lie's career was reaching its peak. In interviews, decades later, he admitted that 5 Fingers of Death gave him everything professionally while taking away what mattered most personally. He became wealthy, famous, internationally recognized, but he lost the person who'd believed in him before any of that happened. Success in Hollywood, whether American or Hong Kong, always comes with a price. For Lo Lie, that price was measured not in broken bones or typecasting, but in a broken home and decades of regret. The glowing red fists that made him immortal on screen couldn't protect what mattered most in real life. That's the tragedy nobody talks about when celebrating cult classics. Behind every iconic performance is a human being paying costs audiences never see.